Welcome to Living Your Senior Life, the podcast where we celebrate the moments, memories, and lifestyle that make this season of life so meaningful. I'm Mark, and today Debbie and I are taking you back to summers that felt a little slower, a little simpler, and somehow a whole lot more magical. We're talking about vintage summer traditions, the ones that many of us grew up with and still hold close to our hearts. Front porch evenings, ice cream trucks, catching fireflies in mason jars, small town parades, and drive-in movies under the stars. These weren't fancy or expensive. They were just real, and they were wonderful. If these memories are close to your heart, you'll also want to check out the full blog post over at livingyourSeniorLife.com. We have photos, fun details, and a few ideas for bringing some of these traditions back to life this summer. Now sit back, pour yourself a glass of lemonade, and let's take a little trip down memory lane.
You know, it's actually incredibly ironic how hard we work today just to do absolutely nothing.
Oh, it really is. It's exhausting just thinking about it.
Right. Like, think about your own weekend for a second. You probably have an app to track your sleep quality or a perfectly curated algorithmic playlist explicitly designed for winding down.
Right. Or even a hyper-scheduled block of calendar time, from 2 to 4 p.m. on Sunday that's entirely dedicated to relaxing.
Exactly. We engineer our downtime, we try to hack it, but we're doing a deep dive today into this really eye-opening piece from Living Your Senior Life.
Yeah, the one titled Vintage Summer Traditions of Simple Americana.
That's the one. And it argues that true relaxation wasn't always something you had to schedule. For a long time, it was just the default state of having literally nothing else to do.
Which is such a striking contrast to how we operate now. I mean, today, leisure is this highly structured project. We feel like we have to actively build walls around our time to keep the demands of the world out.
Yeah, we have to protect our peace, as they say.
Exactly. But if we look back just a few decades, to the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, leisure was the environment itself. It wasn't a fortress you built to protect your weekend. It was just the atmosphere you lived in.
And I want you, the listener, to try and picture that backdrop for a moment. Imagine a neighborhood at twilight.
The air is thick, still warm from the afternoon.
Yeah, and you can hear a baseball game crackling through a tiny radio speaker somewhere down the street. And there are fireflies blinking in the grass.
It sounds almost aggressively like a movie set.
It totally does. Which, makes it easy to dismiss as just heavy-handed nostalgia.
Right, but what's so fascinating here is that places like the Smithsonian National Museum of American History actively preserve these specific pieces of everyday life.
Right. They aren't holding onto old porch swings and hand-crank ice cream makers just because they're old antiques.
No, they curate these items because they represent a fundamentally different way that human beings use to interact with their time and with their physical space.
And with each other, honestly. So our goal for this deep dive isn't just to put on rose-colored glasses and talk about how great the good old days were. We want to actually decode the mechanisms behind these low-tech traditions.
We want to figure out why a simple front porch holds such powerful emotional weight.
And what that can teach us right now about genuine human connection, especially when we are just drowning in information overload.
Well, and if we are going to talk about mechanisms, we really have to start with the literal foundation that forced people together.
You mean the architecture?
Exactly. The architecture of the era completely dictated the social contract of the neighborhood.
Because this is before central air conditioning was everywhere.
Right. Before the mass adoption of central AC, the front porch was the undisputed heart of the summer evening. It was a physical necessity.
Because the house was basically an oven.
Totally. Families would finish dinner, and because the house was baking hot, they would immediately migrate outside. You had rocking chairs, porch swings, maybe a pitcher of iced tea sweating on a small table.
But while it started as a way to escape the heat, it organically transformed into the central hub of all social interaction.
It really did.
I love thinking about the porch as an interface. Because if you look at it through a modern lens, the front porch was basically the original analog social media feed.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Think about it. You didn't have to text anyone to make plans. You didn't have to send a calendar invite or check someone's availability.
You just walked outside.
Right. You just sat in your rocking chair and your community naturally scrolled past you on the sidewalk. And you had complete control over your level of engagement, too.
What do you mean by that?
Well, like you could just give a polite nod to someone walking their dog, which is basically the equivalent of a like. Or if you wanted to engage more, you could invite them up the steps for a drink, which is a full-blown comment thread.
That is a perfect parallel. because it highlights the concept of outward-facing living. When you sit on a front porch, you are making yourself available to the world. You are signaling to your neighbors that you are open to connection.
But then the AC units arrived.
Yeah, as air conditioning became standard in American homes, our architectural focus completely flipped to inward-facing living. We retreated into our perfectly cooled 68-degree living rooms.
And when we did go outside, we moved away from the street. We went into the backyard and put up those 6-foot privacy fences.
Right, and the literal hum of the AC compressor in the window drowned out the sounds of the neighborhood. We traded the vulnerability and the serendipity of the front porch for absolute climate-controlled privacy.
And we lost that shared sensory experience in the process. You mentioned the crackle of the baseball game earlier. That detail really stuck with me from the source.
It's a very specific sound.
It is, because if I'm watching a game today, I've got my noise-canceling headphones on, and I'm staring at my own iPad screen in my own little bubble. But back then, you had people sitting outside with these portable radios.
And the physics of sound actually played a massive role in community building back then.
How so?
Well, if you are sitting on your porch listening to a local broadcast and your neighbor, 2 houses down, is listening to the exact same game, and the person across the street has it on 2 times.
The entire street is passively woven together by this shared auditory experience.
Exactly. You are all hearing the same pitch, the same strikeout, the same crowd roar at the exact same fraction of a second. It creates a synchronized community without anyone having to say a single word.
You share a reality.
You really do.
So we have this passive gathering, which is the baseline. But it's fascinating how that localized, laid-back atmosphere scales up when you introduce an active event.
Something that actually pulls people off their respective porches.
Right, into a shared physical space. And unsurprisingly, the ultimate catalyst for that was food. You had the neighborhood ice cream truck, which was basically an event in itself.
Oh, absolutely. The minute that specific tinny music started echoing through the neighborhood, it was like a dinner bell.
Kids racing out the door with a fistful of coins, lining up for drumsticks and popsicles. But then you also had these sprawling, informal backyard cookouts.
And nothing highly produced either.
No, just charcoal grills filling the air with smoke, folding lawn chairs scattered everywhere, and coolers full of ice.
And the lack of production value was the whole point. A cookout didn't require an elaborate outdoor kitchen with built-in stainless steel appliances.
Yeah.
Or a catered menu.
It was relaxed.
It was thrown together.
Right.
And it actually required a massive amount of physical effort, particularly when it came to dessert.
Oh, the hand crank ice cream.
A classic hallmark of this era. Families would lug out these heavy wooden hand crank ice cream makers. Someone would chop up fresh garden fruit, pack the machine with rock salt and ice.
And then everyone, especially the kids, would have to take turns manually cranking the handle for an incredibly long time just to freeze the mixture.
Okay, I have to push back on the romance of this particular tradition, though.
Oh, really?
Let's be real for a second. Was it actually about the artisanal culinary quality of the homemade peach ice cream? Or was this just a spectacularly brilliant strategy by parents to burn off their kids' energy?
That is a very fair question.
Because manually cranking that machine for an hour under the hot sun is exhausting labor. To me, this screams of the IKEA effect.
The psychological bias.
Yeah, where we place a disproportionately high value on things we partially build ourselves. I'm willing to bet that vanilla ice cream only tasted so magical because your arms were completely numb by the time you finally got to eat it.
I think you were absolutely right to call out the labor involved. It was exhausting. But whether it was a brilliant parental distraction tactic or a textbook case of the IKEA effect, the underlying mechanism that made it special is exactly the same.
Which is what all of these food traditions, the cookouts, the ice cream trucks, the hand cranking, they were entirely defined by waiting.
Waiting as a feature.
Yes, exactly.
Because usually, if I'm stuck waiting in line today, I'm just aggressively refreshing my email or checking social media. If a delivery app delays my food by 10 minutes, I view it as a complete breakdown of modern convenience.
Right, it feels like a failure.
So how does forced patience actually build a community instead of just creating widespread frustration?
It comes down to how we handle empty space. Today, we try to eliminate all friction from our lives. We want our food instantly, we want our packages tomorrow, we want to skip the line.
Always.
But friction, the actual waiting, is the traction that relationships need to grip onto.
Yeah.
Back then, you had no choice but to wait. You'd had to wait 45 minutes for the charcoal briquettes to turn white and heat up.
You had to stand on the hot asphalt waiting your turn at the ice cream truck.
You had to stand around the patio waiting for someone else to finish cranking the ice cream machine. That forced patience naturally created an empty vacuum of time.
And because there were no smartphones to retreat into, what filled that vacuum?
Conversation. Small talk.
Yeah.
You are standing around with your neighbors with literally nothing else to do but observe each other and talk.
The waiting wasn't a flaw in the system.
No, it was the crucial feature that allowed lasting memories to be made.
Wow, that completely flips the script on how I view inconvenience. The friction is where the memory happens.
Exactly.
And it makes perfect sense because eventually the charcoal burns down, the food is eaten, and the adults settle into those folding lawn chairs to just talk. And that is when the kids completely took over the neighborhood.
The sheer level of childhood autonomy during these summers almost reads like a fantasy novel today.
It really does. You had kids cruising the streets for hours on banana seat bikes with the plastic streamers on the handlebars. They were organizing massive, totally unstructured backyard games.
Croquet, horseshoes.
Capturing lightning bugs in mason jars and running barefoot through the grass.
It was an era of profound independence. Entire afternoons and evenings were spent completely out of the sightline of any adult supervisor.
But let me play devil's advocate here for a second. Unstructured play also meant a lot of scraped knees, neighborhood bullying, kids falling out of trees, and basically zero safety nets.
Sure.
Was it really a golden age of autonomy, or are we just suffering from massive survivorship bias? Like, we remember the lightning bugs, but we forget the broken arms.
It's a highly valid point. There were absolutely physical risks, and safety standards have rightfully improved.
Yeah.
Nobody wants a broken arm.
Right.
But in removing all physical and emotional risk from childhood, we've also removed the environment where risk assessment is learned. Today, a child's summer is often a highly curated, heavily optimized series of structured activities.
Oh, for sure. You have coding camps, specialized athletic clinics, scheduled play dates.
Every hour is accounted for and refereed by an adult. But in the vintage summer, the complete lack of structured activities meant children were faced with the terrifying prospect of deep, unrelenting boredom.
Which we treat like an absolute emergency today. If a kid is bored for 5 minutes, we panic and hand them a tablet to fix the problem.
Exactly. We view boredom as a failure of engagement. But historically, boredom was the primary catalyst for psychological development.
Because they had no schedule.
Right. And no adult referee. So kids had to invent their own fun. They had to look around an empty yard and create a game out of nothing.
And more importantly, they had to negotiate the rules of that game with their peers. If a dispute broke out during a backyard croquet match, they had to figure out how to resolve the conflict themselves to keep the game going.
That unstructured friction built immense creativity, deep peer connection, and a profound sense of self-reliance.
Which brings us to the ultimate symbol of that self-reliance. The universal rule that governed all of this wild freedom, the streetlights.
Ah, yes, the streetlight rule.
It is genuinely wild to think about. Today, parents can track their kids' precise GPS coordinates on a smartphone down to the square foot. We have Life 360, we have Apple AirTags.
It's constant surveillance.
But back then, the technology was just an incandescent bulb kicking on at dusk. Your parents didn't text you. They just trusted that when the sky got dark and the streetlights buzzed on, you would head home.
It was an environment built entirely on an assumption of trust rather than a system of surveillance.
And that infrastructure of trust wasn't just limited to the relationship between parent and child. It scaled up to the entire town.
It did. Because when you have a community that operates on a localized human pace, where neighbors know each other from porch sitting and kids navigate the streets safely, it completely changes how that community gathers for macro events.
Right, because the culture of the neighborhood bleeds into the culture of the town. Moving from the micro to the macro, you had these massive community-wide spectacles that anchored the summer.
Like the small town parades where people would line the sidewalks in lawn chairs waiting for local floats.
Or gathering on giant blankets for community fireworks displays.
And the classic drive-in movie theater. Families would load up the back of a vintage station wagon, the kids already in their pajamas, watching a film under neon lights.
But out of all these larger events from the source material, there is one that absolutely stops me in my tracks because it makes zero sense to a modern brain.
The Sunday drive.
Yes. Getting into a car with zero specific destination just to hang out Feels like a radical act of rebellion against today's culture of hyper-efficiency.
It really does.
The idea that a family would pile into a car, roll all the windows down, and just drive. No Waze app routing them around traffic. No Google Maps calculating the absolute fastest route to a scenic overlook.
They would just explore country roads.
Point at landmarks, maybe stop at a diner if they felt like it, and talk.
The Sunday drive is the perfect encapsulation of everything we've discussed today. Today, the automobile is a pod we use to get from point A to point B, and our primary goal is to eliminate the time spent between those 2 points. But for these families, the journey was the destination. The act of moving slowly through the world together in a shared space was the entire point. It required them to be deeply present. And that exact same mindset applied to the parades and the fireworks too.
Because you couldn't just show up right as the fireworks started.
No, you had to gather early, claim your spot on the grass, and sit there as the sun went down.
More forced patience, more waiting.
Precisely. These events weren't about elaborate, expensive, perfectly optimized vacations designed for Instagram. They were about community pride and uninterrupted time.
Just slowing down.
A Sunday drive or waiting 2 hours for a local parade forces you to step completely out of the fast lane and simply observe the world at a human pace. You are opting into the friction.
A human pace. That really is the through line connecting all of this. The front porches, the hand-cranked ice cream, the streetlights, the Sunday drives, they're all mechanisms that enforce a human pace.
They force you to slow down.
And this brings everything right back to you listening to this right now. Why does understanding the mechanics of a 1970s summer actually matter for your life today?
Well, the article points out a really encouraging trend. These vintage traditions are actively making a comeback.
There's a measurable resurgence occurring. People are intentionally rediscovering porch sitting. They are buying croquet sets and horseshoes.
Really?
Yes. They are actively seeking out that specific nostalgic pace because the modern alternative has become exhausting.
We are collectively burnt out on hyper-efficiency. We are craving that meaningful in-person connection that doesn't require a Wi-Fi signal or a calendar invite.
And the beautiful takeaway here is that you do not need a time machine to get this back.
Right. You don't have to move to a historic small town or pretend it's 1965. You just need a lawn chair, maybe a glass of lemonade, and the willingness to leave your smartphone inside a drawer for one evening.
You just have to let yourself experience the friction of a little bit of boredom and see what kind of conversation fills the empty space. Because the activities themselves are incredibly mundane. It's the intention behind them that holds the magic.
It's the conscious choice to make yourself available, to be present, and to embrace the quiet moments of connection that only happen when we stop trying to be so relentlessly productive.
Which leaves us with a really fascinating thought to mull over as we wrap up this deep dive. If the generations of the 50s, 60s, and 70s look back at streetlights, fireflies, and melting ice cream as the ultimate magical symbols of a life well lived.
What are the vintage summer traditions of the 2020s going to look like to the next generation?
Exactly. When people look back 50 years from now, will their most cherished nostalgic memories be built on the friction of the real physical world, or will they be entirely digital?
That's a profound question.
If we spend all our time perfectly hacking and scheduling our relaxation to avoid even a moment of waiting, what kind of memories are we actually leaving traction for?
Thank you so much for spending part of your summer day with us here at Living Your Senior Life. We hope today's conversation brought back some warm and happy memories, maybe even inspired you to revive a tradition or two of your own. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love it if you'd share it with a friend or family member who might enjoy a little trip down memory lane. And don't forget to visit us at livingyourSeniorLife.com, where you'll find the full blog post on vintage summer traditions, along with plenty of other stories, tips, and inspiration for living your best senior life. And as always, until next time, take care of yourself and live your best senior life.